Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, it was our fault. We made a mistake. The spotter said it was clear. It wasn't clear, and, I didn't want to tear my car up, tear his car up either. I respect everybody, and I demand respect. And, I apologized to the guy when he came over the car, explained to him what happened, and then he took it to another level when he started calling me an idiot and whatever else. And I don't appreciate that. I'm not going to take it. I told him how I felt. I called him out. He didn't show. And so, I'm good with it if he's good with it, but I'm not going to be disrespected by no means.
Yeah, I guess I had a dinner date at Applebee's last night that I didn't find out about until it was too late. It's a shame. Love their riblets and boneless wings, but...
All right, folks, welcome back to Meet Me at Applebees, your number one unrefined motorsports podcast. It's Brian here with Rob and Ashley yet again. And, folks, it's the off-season, so I don't know what the fuck we're going to babble about tonight, but we are here. So, folks, how are we all doing this week?
Doing pretty good. Glad to be back in the Playbees booth here with my friends. Don't have much to talk about, but that's not true. There's a good amount to talk about.
Yeah, there's a little stuff. Obviously, no big racing, to go through, but there's a bunch of silly season stuff that's happened in the last few days, and NHRA finals, and we got a great video to talk about. So,
how about you, True Love? How are you doing? We didn't ask True Love how she's doing.
That's true.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
I do want to say that today is Applebee's 44th birthday, so...
Oh!
Wow.
Happy birthday, Applebee's.
You think they would have put some signage up? But
well, I saw a picture of a chicken sandwich with some birthday candles in it. So.
Nice. I noticed they did put some streamers up on the stack of drywall by the shitters, so maybe they are celebrating in their own way. Not everyone likes their birthday, so that's crazy that Applebee's is only 4 years older than me. That's fucked up.
Well, I told you guys I got a random phone call today from Crawfordsville, Indiana, and I thought maybe somebody at Applebee's had finally heard the show, but no, that was just a shipping company trying to ship out some late model belt buckles that I won online. So still a racing related call though. So
don't have to change the name of the show just yet. So
yeah, not yet. But yeah, okay. So where do we want to start? What's the biggest news topic of the week?
Oh, I don't even know where to start. Well, the lawsuit nonsense is continuing.
Yes.
Some good news for 2311 and Front Row. It looks like they are going to be allowed to run as open teams, which I guess I hadn't put it together that there was a possibility they'd be barred from running all together. I guess if you sort of read through the legalese, it does make sense, but they have been granted the ability to run as open teams, which is good news. I'm sure everybody was thrilled to hear that. Particularly Denny and Bob Jenkins, because Bob is probably going to lose his shirt off this if this doesn't work out. So glad to see them back out there on track. And
And the courts did say that basically with the injunction deal, they have to come back with more proof that them running as open teams will actually hurt their business. So I'm assuming they'll be able to do that, and I guess we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. But speaking of those two teams, there were a few news bits that came out in the last couple days. 2311 tomorrow, we're recording this Tuesday, so today, actually, when you're listening to this, they'll be announcing that Riley Herbst is going to be driving for their third team. So, I mean, who needs a charter when you've got terrible Herbst money?
That's true.
Backing you, so... good for him,
And Monster, I would assume. Here. Monster's got a lot of money, so...
Of course. It's so funny, though. Like, I remember going to Vegas for, like, trade shows for work way back when, and, like, seeing those convenience stores and just thinking it was such a weird name. Like, Terrible Herbst. That's such an odd name for a store. But, yeah, that's theirs. So, But in the other news from Front Row Motorsports, Todd Gilliland is actually moving over to the 34 car, so that means he'll have Love's sponsorship. I know True Love and I are both excited to finally get to cheer for that car because that paint scheme is iconic, and at this point it's probably one of the more iconic ones in the Cup Series. And now there's a driver driving that we actually like, so that's good.
Definitely be buying some merch next year.
Some Love's Travel Stop merch. By the way, if you go to the actual Front Row shop in Mooresville, their merchandise they have for sale is quite affordable. $25 hoodies, $20 t-shirts. It's like going to a punk show these days. So yeah, you can really, if you want to be a front row fan, you can really stock up on some merch there. And it looks like they printed off pretty much right next to the gift shop, because you can see their big printing apparatus there. So
they have a DTG
Did they pay you to
machine.
say this?
no, I was just surprised to see it. Yeah.
That's one shop that I have not been to.
It's
I
cool.
guess I never thought to go to it or where it even is.
Yeah,
that might be one to check out next time we're down there.
there's not much to see. It is pretty cool. Like, you don't get to go really view into the shop too much. There's not glass or anything like a lot of the bigger teams, but there is like a set of double doors with some glass that you can kind of feel like you snuck in there and peek through, and it's like right there. It is a very blue collar racing shop, and stark contrast to say a Hendrick or even Spire at this point. And the gift shop is just kind of there, and like I said, all their graphics and shit come directly from the same room, so it's cool to see, especially since they do so well in the Cup Series and the Truck Series these days. It's nice to see a team. It feels like the '90s a little bit in there, which is cool.
And sorry, Andy, I kind of like lane rigs. So,
Yeah, I like lane rigs too. Yeah.
So, but while we're on the topic too of Denny and front row and all that stuff, Denny got into it a little bit. Well, I shouldn't say get into it. He more or less just called out Larry Mack, because Larry Mack did not respond to this.
I wonder why.
But Larry Mack, he made some tweet about. Just what we need again. Our champion could go through the entire 10-race playoff, not win a race, might not need to, and at the final race, possibly win the title.
Yeah, that was in reference to something Denny said on his podcast about a potential championship scenario, by the way.
Of course. But it turns out that actually fucking happened because Matt Crafton did that in the Truck Series, which is what Denny called him out on. He basically told him that. And then he also said, if you could stop spreading disinformation to your listeners about our lawsuit, I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what he's saying, because I don't listen to.
I feel like you kind of glazed over a little bit of the spiciness of it, but it was pretty intense shit talk for Twitter standards.
Yeah, that really made my day.
Yeah.
He also, NASCAR on Instagram had made a post. It was a picture of Joey Logano holding Monopoly money, and Denny had responded to that too. So he was really on a tear this week on social media.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like he was stressing. So.
Yeah.
But it seems like things are going to be okay over there. Yeah, I gotta say, definitely a little disappointing. And I guess I'm not surprised to see guys like Larry or everyone else on XM or whatever kind of carry the water for NASCAR on this one. But it is a little bit disappointing. Even Kenny Wallace, I don't know if you guys have listened to Ken Schrader and Kenny's new show at all. They're still figuring it out. It's worth a listen, but that first episode, it was very much like, why are the fans so dumb? I don't know. Anyway, it's
somebody in the shit. I haven't finished the first episode. I'm listening to it now, but somebody in the shit posting group was like, "It's the best worst podcast you'll ever listen to," which makes sense. So far, because as much as I love Kenny, he definitely needs guidance at times. Like he's all over the place.
Yeah. I think my only complaint. Sorry, go ahead, True Love.
I was going to say that Brian had sent us a clip of one of Kenny's videos this week, and it was just
so
the most insane roller coaster ride.
Probably, I'm so bummed more people didn't see that video on Twitter, because I posted it, and it's just he's talking about he's singing fucking I don't know what the hell he was singing. What song was he singing? Some weird fucking some weird.
Quite a few songs. He kind of tied them all together.
Well, he sang Waylon Jennings, and he sang some other Smash Mouth. He sang Smash Mouth right into talking about Waylon Jennings with Tim Duggar, and then talking about smashing his nose into his car. Just fucking It's ridiculous.
We'll
post it.
Share that with.
We'll post it.
Yeah.
That's the Kenny Wallace I love and hold dear to my heart. It's when you put him in front of a microphone in a professional setting. I don't know if he realizes that he doesn't have to brown nose NASCAR on the show, or maybe he does. I don't know, because they did fire Brett Griffin, and it sounds like that had something to do with some of the stuff he was talking about. They cut some shit out of the show. Yeah,
it's not even in the notes. Yeah, my favorite dickhead, Brett Griffin. Oh, we talked about that last week, right?
We talked about him leaving the show, but we didn't talk about some of the additional details that came out of that Twitter thread about. He even mentioned that there was some stuff that he mentioned about the lawsuit that was deliberately cut out of the show.
Okay.
So maybe somebody from NASCAR
Denny had responded to that too.
Yeah. That might have set him off this week. But yeah, definitely sounds like maybe NASCAR is knocking on the doors some of the more independent media organizations and
knocking on this Applebee's front door pretty soon.
if they can find us, motherfuckers.
Yeah, Denny has not done a podcast this week, so there's no updates from him, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I guess while we're talking about vaguely talking about playoff stuff, Steve Letarte.
Yeah, speaking of being disappointed in the media,
there's two Steve Letarte notes, and one, it's going to be him, Dale Jr., and Adam Alexander in the Amazon booth, which that's fine. I don't hate Adam Alexander. He's fine. Obviously, love Dale. I don't love Steve Letarte, and this is another reason why his fix for the chase is just drivers have to win, and only winners make it to the playoffs.
Hell yeah.
Which,
perfect.
He was like, we may have 6 people in the playoffs, we may have 16. There's no set number. It just depends on how many people win. I was like, what in the absolute fuck?
Yeah, a lot of frustration about how the championship is decided right now, but also even fewer good ideas on how to fix it out there. So maybe we should just stick with what we got if this is the shit that's coming out of these people.
Yeah, he was like, we're not even going to count points. So I was like, okay. Cole Pern, who never speaks, responded to this and said, this is bad.
No capitalization, no punctuation, just this is bad. Yeah.
Cole only tweets gold. Anytime he says anything, it's always perfect. So, yep, that was right there with it. But in other silly season news, the worst kept secret throughout silly season was announced finally.
Yeah.
Ryan Preece is joining RFK with Kroger sponsorship. There's a lot of good, fun social media content came out of that. There were weird emojis of the team and videos and all sorts of stuff, and I think everybody's psyched on that. I personally love it. I mean, I am a Preece fan, and this is his last chance in Cup, but I think it's a great team. I think RFK just seems like the racers team right now, compared to some of the other ones. And you can say what you want about Brad, but I really think his leadership has done a lot for that team. And they've produced results and really turned that whole organization around, and hopefully Preece can contribute to that and get some results himself. But
we don't need to revisit my feelings on that, because we've literally been talking about this exact move for 6 months now, it seems.
It's not at all new.
The Kroger deal also we've kind of alluded to on here. That's not really much of a surprise. I think the only real surprising piece that came out of this announcement was where their charter was coming from, and they'll be leasing one from Rick Ware Racing, who has more or less confirmed that Cody Ware is going to be the main driver next year, which leaves Corey LaJoie kind of holding the old Applebee's to go sack.
Yep. And he tweeted something about he's got some on track and off track opportunities. So. Yeah. It kind of sounds like we won't be seeing Corey on, at least in the Cup Series, maybe. Who knows? He's not yet to announce anything, but I don't know where he could go.
I mean, sorry, go ahead. I was about to talk some shit.
Our friend of the program, Kyle Ayala, who goes to the NASCAR Institute, had told us that Corey made an appearance at his school this week to talk to the graduates. So I guess that's what he's doing.
That's right.
Scared Straight.
His Scared Straight program.
Yeah.
He's spending his time.
Yeah, I gotta say there's not many occurrences where I would say this, but if given the choice between Corey LaJoie and Cody Ware from a pure talent standpoint, I'm not sure if this is the decision I would have made. But then again, it's not LaJoie Motorsports, it's Rick Ware Racing, so I guess that it's a lot easier to keep paying your son's allowance and let him drive the race car than
if Randy was more successful, then maybe he could have bought his son a team. But
but alas, here we are. So which I don't know, it sucks because I feel like Rick Ware's made some big strides. I mean, I don't feel like they have. Like Justin Haley did some good work with them. Yeah. Corey got some good runs with them. It honestly seemed like it was not the worst fit in the world. and it sounds like that maybe he's the odd man out here. So. Again, I can't say I'm upset to hear that news, considering how much shit we've talked on Corey LaJoie this year.
I will miss talking shit weekly, that's for sure.
This show's going to be like 30 minutes shorter now. Corey's gone.
We'll surely still get our opportunities to talk shit on him, so I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah.
What else happened here? I'm looking.
Tony Stewart had a baby.
Tony Stewart, yeah, had his baby.
From his loins, yeah.
Yeah, Dominic, I forget the middle name, but I mean, it's a fairly...
Dominic James Stewart.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
that's compared to some of the other drivers' kids' names, like that's a pretty good one. So
Yeah, my brain automatically recognizes the word Dominic.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
He said that
congratulations to them.
He said that Tony Jr. was never an option, that he was never going to do that to his child, so...
nice. Smoke Jr.
But
Half
in
smoke.
other half smoke. Other NHRA news. So it was the NHRA season finals this weekend in California, and there were some delays because there was a small plane that crashed in the infield at the track.
Boy,
in the
did it.
pits. I still really haven't heard much about what actually happened. Everybody survived. I know a couple of people were critical, but everybody's still with us, and nobody really said who it was. I mean, God, when I first saw that, my first thought was Tony flying back from his kid being born. But thankfully, it wasn't the case. But
Yeah.
weird occurrence, and that kind of slowed things down a bit.
Boy, let me tell you, lots of flight experts and pilots on Twitter. Apparently, I've never seen so. It's like the whole fucking NTSB showed up to talk about it on there.
I did see a video, and it sheared the entire top of a pickup truck off, which looked wild.
Yeah.
But I'm glad no one died.
Yeah. Weird shit. Speaking of absolutely flying, Austin Prock shattered the NHRA funny car record, hitting a 341.68 at 1,000 feet.
I think that's the fastest pass in NHRA history, not just funny cars.
Yeah,
I believe that
might be correct. I know Bob Tasca. I think he might have. I don't know if this speed was faster than what Tasca did at that Open event earlier in the year, but it was pretty damn close. I know a lot of people on the internet were kind of saying this has been done before, but certainly not under NHRA sanctioning. And it was cool to see the John Force car that wound up. And goddamn, 341 is so fast. It's so fucking fast.
Well, yeah, and speaking of, the weekend. So yeah, like I said, it was the finals, and I did watch a little bit of it, not a ton, but a little bit of it. And Austin, in his rookie season, won the title for funny cars. So John Force definitely did a bang-up job of picking a successor for his ride, because it seems like he's off to a good start.
Yeah, and John, shout out to him for doing so well to set that up for him. Because the NHRA has that point system to where it carries over.
No. That's not exactly what happened. What happened was the guy who actually took over John's car, Jack Beckman, he won the race that this past weekend.
Oh.
So it was his second finals win of the year. And in his post-race interview, he said, "John, if you're going to ask 2025, it's a yes. I'm open." So who knows if John's going to come back or not. I would probably guess not at this point, but if he doesn't, he might have a good replacement already on his hands. But yeah, Austin was already nabbed and he already was the full-time driver in the other car.
That's true.
So,
yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I mean, he was the successor as far as being the lead driver for the organization. But
still bang-up job for that team this year.
Absolutely. Other news and notes, Greg Anderson won his 6th Pro Stock title in the HendrickCars.com Chevy, and Antron Brown had a really great weekend. He came in 3rd in the points, beat points leader Justin Ashley in the first round, and ended up winning the race and the title. So that was his 4th Top Fuel championship. So
yeah,
congrats to
Antron.
He's a good dude.
Yeah.
So congrats to all those guys. I don't watch a ton of NHRA, but once in a while, especially now that it's the off season and nothing
It's
else.
the only thing on TV.
Yeah. So that was cool. And then final note, Roger Penske buys the rights to the Long Beach Grand Prix. Rob, you're the IndyCar guy, so
That's pretty much it. Just another property that Roger Penske has purchased.
Imagine that.
Yeah, it had been owned by, oh God, his name is escaping me. It's been owned by the same ownership group for a very long time. And, of course, Roger coming in to pick this up. I suppose it's no surprise. Long Beach's, the rights have been rumored to be up for sale for a long time now, and it's finally happened. I mean, Roger's done a great job with Indianapolis, regardless of what some lifers might think, and that he's made Indianapolis a Penske-only show, which, not really that true in my opinion. But he's done great stuff with the facilities and really elevated the event even further, and I expect him to pick up the Long Beach Grand Prix and do the same. Of course, that's it's one of the top 5 biggest auto racing events in the U.S. Still, even though IndyCar only draws 47 viewers a week. That place is packed. I think 250,000 people come through there through the entire weekend. The grandstands are always packed. It's a full weekend of IndyCar, IMSA, Indy Lights, the whole thing. So definitely excited to see what Roger has to bring to the event. And hey, it does kind of open the door to NASCAR if they wanted to get back into Southern California and try that out. Since I know the original ownership group, that wasn't something they really were very interested in, and now that Roger has a little bit more skin in the NASCAR game, I could see him wanting to potentially open the door for that. So I guess we'll see how that goes. But yep, something else Roger Penske owns. Yeah.
And actually, you know what? There was another news note, and it's actually part of the DARF of the Week segment, so might as well talk about that now. And it's also somewhat septic tank related. Joe Gibbs announced Monday that he was going to be letting his drivers drive dirt again.
Yes.
So, he already had Bell on the team, who we all know his dirt skills, and his grandboy also likes racing dirt from time to time, but finally signing Chase Briscoe to the team, I guess, just tipped it over the edge, and they're going to be allowed to race dirt now. All events have to be approved by the team, supposedly, but who knows how strict they'll be. Neither one of them have announced Chili Bowl entries yet, but with Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch and a bunch of other guys showing up, I have to imagine they'll be there. I would hope. I know Rob's already talked about going, and I'm definitely interested, so it would be cool.
I mean, Chase Briscoe brings his own car almost every single year. Excuse me, and I wouldn't be surprised. The entry list is about to get announced. The Chili Bowl folks they put on Twitter a few minutes ago that once they reach 100 entries, they'll release the list. They were at 96, so maybe in a second here I'll check Twitter to see if a few more entrants have come in and we can talk about who's on there. But I think the big piece here is that, and I don't know if a lot of people really know this, but Ty Gibbs has been running at Millbridge pretty regularly lately in micro sprints and that sort of deal. And I know he tested a 410 at Charlotte, the same Indy Racing Parts car that Ricky Thornton was running at the finals. And apparently Larson was there to kind of take a look and see how he was doing. Everyone gave him the thumbs up. So Ty's definitely got the dirt racing bug. And I would not be surprised to see him make a run at the Chili Bowl at some point. And honestly, it wouldn't be that difficult for any of these fuckers to get a ride. Ty Gibbs has more money than God. Christopher Bell, he's got such a history there. I'm sure Keith Coons or somebody would put him in a car. And of course, Chase has his own shit. So I wouldn't be surprised to see all three of them there coming up here in January, which would be fucking awesome. And like you said, with Kyle Busch and presumably Larson running as well, because I don't think he's running at Votto this year. And Shane Van Gisbergen as well. There's going to be a lot of NASCAR talent hanging out at the Chili Bowl this year. So, yeah. Bring Ty. Why not? Who gives a shit? It'd be fun.
But I did mention this was a DARF of the Week moment. So in one of the Facebook groups, I don't know exactly which one, but somebody posted the link of, the announcement. And the first comment was a guy named Jeremy Ogle. Who, fuck reading the article. Don't even read the headline. Just who cares?
The headline is literally it was the Flow Racing post. It wasn't even like a group. It was the official post. And the headline is Joe Gibbs Racing adjusts dirt racing policy for drivers. And just for a little added context, if you don't want to read the article, the post says, "Could we see Christopher Bell and Chase Briscoe race on dirt again sometime soon?" With a picture of Christopher Bell hanging out at the top of a midget after he won the Chili Bowl. And this guy says, "Bell, no. Gibbs doesn't allow drivers to do it." Made my fucking head spin. It was so bad I even edited the post together so we could get it on the internet because I knew this was it. This was the DARF of the week, no question.
100%.
Yeah, so fucking dumb.
Yeah.
But speaking of midget racing in NASCAR, guys, Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson have both announced that they're running the Turkey Night Grand Prix in Ventura coming up. They've had to add extra grandstands apparently because demand for tickets is so high. And that's pretty fucking cool. So it's nice to see Kyle Busch embrace dirt racing again. He's also run at Millbridge, and of course Brexton is his son has been running there a lot, and they run the shootout every year as well, as does Kyle Busch. So yeah, nice to see Kyle do the big show at the Chili Bowl and also get some seat time at some of these other California events coming up. I love the crossover more than just about anything, so it'll be interesting to see how he does. Definitely a big thing for midget racing, that's for sure.
Yep. And before we dive further into the septic tank, there's one other DARF that we got to talk about.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously it was talked about last week that FedEx is leaving Denny Hamlin's team at the end of the year. And that leads to conversations about, you know, sponsors and brand identity and car identity and all that. And, you know, we don't have to dive too deep into that conversation because we've had it before, but somebody on Twitter posted a graphic with all of Denny's paint schemes for this past year, and, you know, he had FedEx and a bunch of different other sponsors on the car, and his tweet was basically saying, this is what's wrong with NASCAR, there's no identity, how is a brand new fan supposed to know what car Denny's driving if it's changing any week? And there is something to that argument, like there is validity there, but the DARF that we're talking about, Cab NASCAR 42 responded with, my dad could not tell you what car number Kyle Busch drove. You want to know what he could tell you? Kyle Busch drove the M&M's car. Jeff Gordon, he had no clue what number he was on that bright rainbow car. Motherfucker, like, that's your dad's problem, okay? Like, at the very least, you should know a car number a driver
kind
has.
Kind of a two-for-one DARF of the week on that one.
Yeah.
It's a family tradition.
But yeah, like, just, you know, ridiculous. Like, that's... Especially back then, everybody knew fucking driver's numbers. Everybody knows driver's numbers now. Like, that's the very one thing you should know about a driver. So
yeah,
2-for-1 DARF this week. So with that though, we can dive back into the septic tank.
That's true. We're deep in this thing now. We haven't really climbed out since last week, and honestly, that's the only racing that's happening right now is short track stuff. So climb on in with Uncle Rob and the gang, and let's have a little bathroom break in here and talk about some dirt late models. The Castro Flow Racing Night in America series wrapped up their relatively short run. They only do a few races a year. It's kind of a midweek deal. They went to Sonoya for the Peach State Classic. Not too far from Ashley Truelove, as far as I know anyway.
It's 2 or 3 hours away.
Okay, that's farther than I thought, but it's about 30 minutes outside of Atlanta. Cool racetrack, and Ricky Thornton Jr. just whooped everyone's ass this weekend. It came down to Bobby Pierce and RTJ for the title. Bobby Pierce was definitely the favorite to win, I believe, but he had kind of a shitty weekend. In fact, he needed a provisional to make the feature on Saturday night. He did his best. He got to about 10th or 11th or something like that, but it just wasn't enough, and Ricky Thornton picks up his second major late model title of the year, which is good news for me as a Ricky Thornton fan. So I'm going to give him a quick little round of applause there. How about that? Yay! How about it? Ricky also probably going to end up on the Chili Bowl entry list, which he always does, so I'm excited about that. As is Nick Hoffman. So, yeah, lots of late model guys. Everyone shows up to the Chili Bowl. You got to fucking come hang out. You can crash in, not my hotel room, but one of the ones in the same building. We'll all go to Lenny's together. How about that? In other late model news here, Lucas Oil has announced that they're shutting down the MLRA, of course, the Midwestern Late Model Racing Association, kind of a second-tier series they ran at tracks all over the Midwest. Obviously, that's in the name. They're doing it to focus more on the big tour. Kind of a bummer, honestly. Like, I didn't watch a ton of that racing, but it was a nice sort of mid-level series where Tyler Erb and Gordy Gundaker could go get some extra checks once in a while. I always enjoyed watching Tyler Erb win those races, and they ran a lot around the time that Hell Tour was happening, so it was a busy time in the middle of the year, and again, sort of a staple of late model racing in the Midwest, and kind of sad to see that go. But as they say, anytime a Midwestern racing series bites the dust, another one pops back up, and by some fucking miracle, the All-Star Circuit of Champions is returning. That's right. Of course, if you guys don't know the history of that, probably the number 2 410 series in the entire country. Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet purchased the rights to it from Tony Stewart after Tony had made it into a national brand that was sort of nipping at the heels of the Outlaws, and it got turned into High Limit once those guys bought it. Now, with the help of some Midwestern promoters, I forget the guy's name, I do apologize, but they are bringing back the All-Star Circuit of Champions, sort of in the original spirit of what the original tour was. A lot of Ohio tracks, a lot of Midwestern tracks, a lot of Pennsylvania. A little bit more of a way to provide a big paying series and a prestigious series and a title to a lot of these Midwestern guys that have sort of been left in the dust by High Limit and the World of Outlaws. So it was a shame to see that series name die with the birth of High Limit, but I'm really, really glad to see it back, and especially serving the purpose it's going to. I'm sure that, I don't know if the schedule's been announced yet, but I'm sure it's going to be good. And Brian, I bet you'll be able to go see some All-Star races this year. And it'll draw some big cars too, because, again, that name is powerful. And a lot of great stars have cut their teeth there and become legends through that. So I'm glad to see that back. Over on the pavement side of the Islip 300 was at Riverhead this weekend. Everyone pretty much had already written the check for Matt Hirschman, but he was denied by 17-year-old Chase Grennan. One of his first open wheel tour type modified races ever, and he goes out there and wins the Islip 300. That's a big deal. I think Matt Hirschman led a lot of laps, but he ran into some trouble, and then Grennan kind of picked it up and got his first major victory. So it's even too early to know if he's gonna be anything or not. He just won this race, so he's run so few modified races that it's hard to tell. But good for him. It's always cool to see a young kid come up through there and show his talent amongst some of the big dogs, including Hirschman, Jimmy Blewett, all those guys. Definitely cool. Let's see here. We already talked about the Chili Bowl, a lot of midget stuff. Jade Avedizian, unfortunately, she's announced she's taking the rest of the year off to heal up. She got some injuries at the BC 39 at Indy and has never really recovered from it, I guess, and she's going to take the rest of the year off, or some time off. She said the rest of the year. We'll see if she's at the Chili Bowl. I imagine that's probably the goal, is to heal up and be ready in time for that. But Jade is a fucking dog. She's really good, and I hope she gets well quickly, because she always puts on a good show, and she's won a lot of races. So thoughts and prayers with Jade. Hopefully she's back sooner than later. This weekend we do have some racing coming up. USAC swings through Thunderbolt. That's going to be nice and fun. Everyone loves USAC racing out in the West Coast, even though I got to stay up till like fucking 8 in the morning to watch it. But it's going to be a lot of lonely nights on the couch with your boy Rob here coming up between Ventura and that. But yeah, USAC's out on the West Coast now, and if you got Flow Racing, there's plenty of that coming up. Also this weekend, the South Carolina 400 at Florence. All you Dale Jr. fans are going to get a chance to see the Bud 8 back out there, as well as all the stars and cars of late model racing in the South and pretty much everywhere else. All the guys will be there: Bubba Pollard, fucking Steven Nassie, and Dale Jr. So that's all going to be on Flow Racing as well. I don't think I really have much else in the Septic Tank this week, but like I said, there's a little bit going on. If you do have a Flow Racing subscription, this is a good time to utilize it, because shortly after this week, I think it's 2 weeks from now, we got the Snowball Derby, we got the Gateway Dirt Nationals at the Dome, and a lot more stuff coming up. So even though short track season's over, it's not. So go buy yourself a case of beer and spend $40 on a monthly subscription for Flow, which I guess is what it costs if you don't buy the full year one. And yeah, we'll go ahead and flush on the Septic Tank down with that. Also, there is a period tracker app called Flow, which is also $40 a month. So all the dude listeners of the show, which is literally all of you, just be careful when you're swiping your credit card if you choose to do that, because you might be surprised.
Jesus. All right. Well, I guess that means it's video of the week time. So we watched MTV's True Life. I'm a race car driver, primarily featuring Dale Jr. It was really kind of following him around for a few races, but Tony Stewart and a few other drivers have some appearances throughout the episode. And like I said, did you guys watch this show? Not this episode, but I mean, did you guys like True Life back in the day? It was one of my favorite MTV shows.
Yeah, I definitely
one of
watched
my
it.
favorites.
Yeah.
There's been so many I've watched, and unfortunately not as many as I would like are out there. But when this popped up, I was like, oh, this is perfect for the show. So this was released in April of 2001. However, it was filmed throughout the fall of 2000. So thankfully, there's not really any awkwardness with Dale talking about his dad passing or anything like that. There's plenty of senior talk, but none of that, sad awkwardness. But it starts off with the infamous clip of young Dale Jr. in the Good Wrench uniform, talking about his dad and loving NASCAR and stuff. But Blink-182 is playing in the background, so it's definitely an MTV show.
It's definitely 2001.
Yep.
Also, he's 15 in that clip, and I always thought he was younger than that. Just looking at
he's
him.
15. I thought he was like 12 or 13 or something, maybe.
He's been a late bloomer.
Yeah. But yeah, speaking of it being 2000, this is the prime Dale Jr. bleached hair era. So he's all blonde up top, and aside from that clip, as a kid, there's a clip of him driving some convertible around. I have to assume it's a GM of some sort, and just talking about driving NASCAR and whatnot. There's a shot of a girl next. There's some younger girls at a track, and they're talking about being race fans, and they're comparing NASCAR to extreme sports, which, this was the heyday for extreme sports and mainstream culture. And, while it's a funny comparison, there's also something to it, being that, especially in this era, I mean, thankfully, we've lost no drivers since, but this was still the era where drivers were getting really hurt and dying. So yeah, there is some truth to that. You see some clips of Scott Pruitt, which I didn't catch this till the episode was almost over. But they
spelled his name wrong.
Spelled his name wrong. So there's a Scott Pruitt that's like a congressman or something who spells it like with an I, and Scott, the driver, doesn't. So they use the congressman spelling throughout the episode, which I thought was very funny.
They spelled most of the names wrong at the bottom of the screen, I noticed. I think Elliott Sadler was wrong. Willie T. Ribbs was wrong.
Yeah, pretty hard to fuck that one up, but...
Yeah, really. There's some footage here of, just random kids in the pits. They obviously try to talk to some younger folks while they're down there, which makes sense. There is a quick clip of a wife hitting her husband in the stands and spilling his beer. Which I knew we'd all catch that. And yes, there's a lot of fan stuff giving their opinions on the sport and whatnot, and that's always kind of fun to see. We see Dale Jr. talking about his Busch Series days and moving his whole team up to the Cup Series. While he's talking about this stuff, as the Cup Series transition is happening, there's Rage Against the Machine playing in the background. This is all stuff that Dale himself would probably be into. But going back to that clip of Dale as a kid, there was another clip that definitely does not get shown nearly as often as that first one, where Junior's talking about how his, wanting to get into racing, but his dad doesn't trust him, which I just thought was interesting. Later on in that same clip, he talks about how much he loves his dad, and he's more of a family man than people would think, which, knowing what we know now, might not necessarily be the truth. I mean, Dale has talked about his struggles with his dad throughout his childhood and whatnot. Then we see some more fans coming in, both loving and hating Dale Jr. There's a guy that says Dale's going to be as good or better as his dad because he's got a lot of salt in his ass. I have never heard that expression in my life.
Yeah, that's not right.
No.
That's not correct. Close.
What kind of... never mind.
And then there's some more guys that are kind of running Dale down, saying he's riding his daddy's coattails and whatnot. And then before we cut to the first commercial break, there's a quote here from Dale that I liked and is actually true, especially, 20 years later and knowing what we know now about him. If they think I'm going to be that guy someday, talking about his dad, they're going to be disappointed because I'm different. And That's true. I mean, unfortunately, he didn't necessarily live up to his dad's stats, but as far as who he is as a person, what he contributes to the sport, he is much different in a lot of good ways, but definitely different. Now, there's 3 commercial breaks, and this first one, I don't want to go into every commercial because there's fucking 10 commercials.
So many commercials in each break.
10. However, there are a couple here that I really liked. There was the Lipton Brisk Iced Tea claymation ad featuring Rocky. That was one of my favorite commercials back in the day. I love those series of commercials.
Yeah.
So that I was very psyched to see.
Celebrity deathmatch looking.
Yep. The Driven movie trailer was shown throughout this a few times, which I still have not watched.
This is one of the only notes I had. That might have to be the season-ending video of the week, and it'll just be the whole episode. We watched Driven live together because it fucking sucks.
Talking about it.
Yeah, we could do that. We get SSX snowboarding, the Essential Spring Break 2001 CD, mixed by DJ Scribble and featuring my favorite song of all time, Sandstorm. I love that song. But my favorite commercial of the whole fucking break is an MTV. They aired a show called WWF Sunday Night Heat back in the day. So that ends the commercial break, and just the rundown of the shows that are running that night. It's like I would have been glued to my TV that entire night. It's like Jackass. Like I think there was True Life. I'm a Private Wrestler, which I know there were a couple wrestling themed ones. I have not seen this one, but I have to assume they're talking about. There's a wrestling thing called Customs, which, I know there's a few wrestling fans that know all about this, but if you don't know about this,
I don't.
There are guys that...
Pimp My Ride, but wrestling?
No. It's a little more sexual. So there are guys that pay both men and women wrestlers to do custom matches where they'll tell them exactly what to do. Usually they're wearing much skimpier than normal outfits and maybe doing some far more sexual moves. So that is
me one bit
that is what
about
I have
the
to
wrestling community.
Yeah, well, I mean, trust me, that's probably not even as bad as it gets. But I got to search that out because I don't remember watching that back in the day.
Okay, well, that can be something you do.
Yeah, that won't be on the show.
Yeah. As the name implies, private wrestling.
Yes. Back from the break, obviously Dale's back on screen, and he's talking about how NASCAR is the biggest circus that ever comes to town, showing merch haulers. There's Lugnut, the Charlotte mascot, doing donuts in a Legends car, and Dale's explaining all this stuff. I forget why I wrote this quote down, but I think it was a fan saying that they're true dedicated alcoholics, which, that's, I don't know if they necessarily want to express that, but, there are definitely some of those folks at the track. Then they show some Earnhardt merch, but then also they show Dick Trickle merch, and they have to. The camera guy has to coerce Dick's merch guy to say his full name because if you don't remember,
Mr. Trickle.
Yeah, Mr. Trickle. If you don't remember back in these days, Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann from SportsCenter loved saying Dick Trickle's name.
Yeah, no matter where he finished in the race, they would always announce, and Dick Trickle finished in 24th.
Yep.
It was funny every time.
They do show a brief clip of Dick Trickle with coffee and cigarettes at the track standing next to Casey Atwood, so that was cool.
Yeah.
Classic.
From here, there's some more partying footage. There's a quote from a guy that was shown a few times. NASCAR is the only place in the world where Yankees and Southern boys can get together and have a good time. I guess there's got to be more places where those crowds get together and have a good
Probably
time.
number one on the list, I would say.
But yeah, it's number one. But yeah, there's a lot of... oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that all the girls that they show in these fan clips look very 2000s.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I haven't felt the feeling that I felt in my soul watching this in a very long time, so it was nice.
And there's this is where they talk about the party scene in the infield. There's a trailer with a bunch of guys sitting in front of it that mention it's the only sport you can come to for a whole weekend, which I guess is true. There's these little twin fat kids, I have a note, running around. They talk about family, food, drinking beer, all that shit. There's Bobby Labonte on the screen talking about the aroma of the track.
In a very cool leather jacket.
Yep. And then there's a clip of Steve Park talking to some girls and saying he's too busy to get married, and the ladies are excited when they hear he's a bachelor. So we'll see if he had any luck that weekend.
Dale Jr. has a really cool Titus-style bowling shirt on in his interviews,
Yes.
which I thought was cool.
I loved Titus. That was a good show. But now, unfortunately, this is the controversial segment of the show.
So last night, I hadn't watched this video yet, and then True Love texts the group, and he's like, wow, wasn't expecting all the racism in this video. And my first
I was
reaction...
like, man, I was really loving this until the blatant racism segment.
And in my brain, I'm like, how bad could it be, right? It's MTV 2001. I'm sure it was just some idiots who watched the Chappelle show, right? You know, and boy, was I shocked when it came on the screen. Just how brazen. We're not talking thinly veiled racism. We're talking straight up.
Just saying it out loud to the MTV cameras for all the world to see.
Yeah.
And live on for all eternity.
Yeah, on this show. I really loved how, and if you want to describe what they, just read the transcript, Brian. Be my guest.
Brian.
I've got the notes. Yeah. I'm not gonna say the word.
No, go ahead.
You're not gonna say the Kyle Larson word?
No. Nope. Gonna leave that out. But
it didn't sound nearly as bad when Kyle Larson said it. I'll say that. Holy shit.
I guess there's some truth to that. But
a lot more hatred in this man's tone.
So they start to dip into this by talking to a couple groups of fans and just asking why there aren't more black fans. And the first group doesn't really have a good answer for that. Although there is a woman that asks how come there aren't more black drivers, which is a fair question, but I feel like the tone she asked it in was not the way to ask that. I feel like she asked that in like a condescending way, like they should be here. Like, well, people got to put them in cars, lady. Like, you can't just fucking. They're not just gonna show up and jump in them, you know. But now
these guys proceed to explain why in their own terms.
Yes, straight up saying the N-word on MTV and that they don't belong at the track. So that was a fun little clip to witness. But right after that, though, it jumps into Dale Jr. talking. He's listening to rap and he's talking about being disappointed in those fans, which is the absolute best way to handle this. And he's said this stuff in the past, or not the past. He said that since then. He's talked about it on the show, the Confederate flag, all that stuff. Like, not to say go ahead.
I was going to say, he said, it makes me sick to my stomach to know that I might go out there on the racetrack and be entertaining someone with that opinion.
Yeah. Yep, which is the best possible way to handle that. And also Jeff Burton too is in there talking about how there is a push for more diversity in the sport and whatnot. So again, there were some good responses from those guys about this topic, which unfortunately 24 years later is still something. It's not nearly as bad as it used to be, but it is still something that NASCAR is still not the most diverse place.
But boy, they drop Willie T. Ribbs right in there with his cowboy hat and as the voice of aggression, who's very calm, but I wouldn't fuck with this guy.
Passive about it.
But
he was like, nobody's ever said a slur to me, but then, like, I'm pretty sure in the documentary. Well, but I mean, I'm pretty sure in Willie's documentary he talks about like dudes saying it to his face in certain places. So I don't know why.
I was gonna bring that up. If you guys have not watched Uppity, I believe it's still on Netflix. It was a Netflix production. That is an excellent documentary about Willie T's life. Highly recommended. And if it's still up there, I would say you should go check that out because Willie is a character to begin with. Obvious color barrier. And things he dealt with aside, it's worth it for that alone. But his story is pretty intense. And again, just seeing him in a cowboy hat, just kind of sitting back and like, no one's ever said it to me here. And just in the way that like, this guy would probably rip you in half if you did. I enjoyed that very much.
Yep. Although they do show some clips of black fans at the track. They interview a younger girl at the track who brought her family and said she loved it and was planning on coming back. Then from there, in the midst of all this, there's a clip of Steve Park walking to the track and awkwardly grabbing some fan's Pennzoil hat. I just thought it was very strange for that to be in the middle of all this. Talk about it being a good old boy sport. Then there's some other black dude on camera talking about being a fan, and his quote was, "Don't be afraid to come out of the closet with your NASCAR stuff because I know you got it," which I thought that was funny.
I will say, I was going to say this to the end of the segment, but since we're talking about this whole deal, I love that, and I feel like this is probably why MTV hasn't been really invited back to the racetrack in a long time. This is a straight-up documentary. There are no... there are no punches pulled here, or there are punches pulled. They come in and give you an actual slice of everything here. Whereas a lot of the media you see and a lot of things you see on television now, it definitely goes through NASCAR, or it has the sort of threat hanging over it. We kind of talked about this earlier in the show with some of the podcasts and, NASCAR doing their best to control the narrative of what's put out there.
Sugarcoating.
Yeah, this one is not at all, and there's positive sides to it.
Salt in that ass.
There's just salt up in that ass the entire time.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the shit out of this for that reason, because I feel like this is probably honestly the best representation of the full NASCAR experience that I've seen.
Yeah.
Especially coming out of a big network. So
yeah, it's definitely more authentic, and it tells you the good and bad side of being a fan, which is still true to this day. I mean, we've talked about that. It's.
I mean, Lord knows not just at racetracks, and mostly not at racetracks, but there's been times where I'll drink beers with people, and I think it's going pretty good, and all of a sudden it goes sideways, and I gotta get the fuck out of there.
Make some new friends.
So I was like, here's the video form of it. So
yeah, when this came out, I was like 15, and I was. During this era of my fandom, I was in high school, and I was very much struggling with being a NASCAR fan, because I was a NASCAR fan, but I went to a very redneck high school, and everyone that was NASCAR fans at high school were rednecks, and I fucking hated the redneck kids in high school, and I didn't want to have anything to do with them, and a lot of it had to do with what we just saw in this video, and I was in my rebellious punk rock phase too, so... definitely sums up this era of my NASCAR fandom and the struggles.
Yeah. Moving on, though. So next up was the second commercial break, and this one was quite a bit shorter, thankfully. And there are only a couple notable commercials. It starts off with an ad for a Date with Destiny, a Destiny's Child special weekend where they play their new record and show a bunch of videos, and there's FaceTime with Destiny's Child. I didn't watch any of that stuff. There was an ad for a show called The Faces of Fear, which I don't remember at all. I definitely didn't watch that. And then the other one, which the longest, this was over a minute long. There was a commercial for the Magna Bright makeup mirror, which essentially was more or less like a ring light mirror, and it said it had some sort of like magnifying effects to it. And not to put you in the spot, but as the only person on the show that wears makeup at all, Ashley, would you use this product?
I hate those magnifying mirrors, because when you look at them, you're like, holy shit, is that what I actually look like?
My grandma used to have one, and I would go play with it and stick my face on it, and same thing.
Yeah, well, I remember my mom and aunt and granny having these, but no, I'm too self-conscious to get that up close and personal with my face.
All right, well, that answers that question.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of commercials, though, this next segment of the show is kind of talking about the corporate side of racing, talking about sponsorships and signing autographs and all that. And here we see Tony Stewart. He's walking around a Home Depot looking at the manly man's tools, as he says, which are drills in his eyes. He says he prefers DeWalt, which cue Matt Kenseth getting a clip, who also loves the DeWalt drills and says he's not much of a handyman around the house. And Tony says if Joe Gibbs saw me looking at sharp-ass saws, he'd be freaking out right now.
As he's putting his hand on the blade. Lifting the guard up and just grabbing the fucker. So.
This is something I actually kind of forgot because, I mean, he was such a backmarker back then. But we all know Mark Martin as the Viagra driver, but Stacy Compton was actually the first person in NASCAR to run those colors on his car. And he's kind of here to talk about it and how it's...
Yeah.
Oh, was it Stacy Compton? I thought it was Mike. Okay, well, Mike Bliss, I'm a fucking idiot.
Well, no, Stacy Compton ran it as well, and actually when they showed the car, I was like, oh, fuck, it's Stacy Compton, and then Mike Bliss shows up, and I was surprised by that. But
okay, well, fuck me then, Mike Bliss.
Yeah. Yeah,
So he was there to
a boner check station there run by Pfizer.
Yeah.
You can go get your dick checked out.
Rate your erection.
Now you can just buy him online in a 3-second questionnaire, so you don't have to do that.
Yeah, in a world where I'm stoked by a Zen tent, I can't imagine what this was for some people out there getting samples.
Geez, I'm not trying to get hard at the racetrack. It's not my goal usually. But yeah, moving on, they talk about being doing appearances and being a spokesman for the sponsors. There's a bunch of clips of Dale.
Quick aside here. This past when we were in Charlotte, my family was there too, like my mother and father-in-law, and I let it slip that I have a podcast that I hadn't really kept it from them, but I never said the name.
This is gonna be the first episode they listen to.
Well, that's what my fear is. So. Sorry, Karen.
Turn it off before they get to the videos.
I didn't even say any slurs.
But yeah, anyway, sorry if you're listening to this. This is unfortunately what it's always like. So anyway, continue.
So they got some clips of Dale signing autographs at the Bud trailer, and there's a drunk guy in a Bobby Labonte shirt that comes up yelling at Dale to say hi to his friend in this big brick of a cell phone that they had back in 2000, which I really love that.
Okay, right before this, there was a quick clip of Tony at Home Depot doing a signing, and there was some goblin man that appears out of nowhere, runs up on Tony and says something. I couldn't understand it. I rewound it like 5 times trying to understand what this man said to Tony, but I don't think Tony understood him either, but
you just shrug it off.
Yeah,
good.
This whole segment is about them selling merch, and as Tony's signing autographs, he signs a truck, and he's like, yeah, this is what allows me to supersize my Big Mac meal. We'll be able to do that after selling a few of these. I thought that was pretty funny.
Let's see here. Dale was left-handed. I guess I didn't know that, but I noticed that in the clips.
Dale and Tony were both left-handed.
I didn't even notice Tony. Tony signs a baby's apron in Home Depot. They like as Rob just mentioned with the supersize thing. Both of them get cuts of the die-cast money. They're really excited about the die-cast money. Like Dale says, that's where he gets more of his money than at the track. Dale says he can't be seen drinking anything but Budweiser. And then obviously, being 2000, this was still in the Winston Cup era, so they get into the cigarette talk. Dale is very weird and coy about it. Like, he's like, I don't really love endorsing cigarettes, but, it is what it is. But then this, if you don't remember, the last couple of years, he's promoted some, cigarette, stop smoking programs or whatever the fuck you want to call them, anti-smoking devices. And he's talked about smoking in the past.
Yeah.
Which I've still never seen proof that he did, so I don't know what the fuck that was all about. But,
he said that he used to smoke. Maybe in this clip, maybe he was trying to act coy so that his dad.
Yeah, that's true. He's always said he tried to hide that from his dad, so maybe that's why. But yeah, I mean, for those who don't remember, I mean, we've talked about getting Zins at the track. You could do that with cigarettes back in the day.
They were free back in the day.
Oh yeah, you show up and you got a fucking Marlboro pack. Well, here's a carton of Winston's instead, and they try to film a girl getting cigarettes from the Winston girls, but the Winston girls shut that down immediately, and then they go into the Miss Winston and her duties. Like Dale's excited that they have a Miss Winston because he's excited to have a hot girl at the track, and they show her. Yeah, hot chick.
And she brings the eyebrows. That's for sure.
They show the Miss Winston. I guess I didn't know this, but like part of her duties are going around and getting shit signed from the drivers for charities, because that's what she was doing in this clip. So, that was a little thing I learned. And she is not allowed to talk about cigarettes on camera either. She can only talk about her duties as Miss Winston.
Also, when that girl went to get free cigarettes, did they ask her for an ID to be over 21 and to show them a pack of cigarettes to prove that she's a smoker?
Yes.
I think so. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, again, at the Zin trailer, they ask you if you're a nicotine user, and if you say no, they will turn you away.
Yeah.
So, I guess it's some sort of liability thing, I have to assume.
I mean, this was also the time where the federal government was really coming down on smoking advertising and nicotine and cigarette advertising. It had already been largely banned in Formula One, or was starting to pop up to where they couldn't display the name at certain racetracks or in certain countries, and that was definitely happening here. And of course, it was like 4 years later, it was Nextel, so they were definitely treading some serious legal waters here. So I imagine, having one of the largest networks in the world come by and film you probably sent their PR people into a tizzy.
Yeah, I think the Winston deal was, as part of the whole government regulations, like they were allowed to run out the contract. I think that's what it was. Yeah. If I remember correctly.
Do y'all have to show them your empty Zentens at them?
No, they just ask you.
They just knew I was a heavy user.
Just show them off just to brag.
Rob was very excited.
Yeah, I just dumped out a big old Walmart sack full of my empties and.
Well, you should have just showed him your pewter tin or whatever the fuck metal
That's
it
true.
is.
Yeah.
Magnesium tin.
Oh, wizard staff.
I think saying hell yeah to that lady was enough for her to let me in. That was no problem. Yeah.
Hell yeah, I have an addiction. Fuck. The last little bit of this segment, we see a shot of Dale Jr. standing by a porta potty, but then he's spotted by some fans who come over and take a picture with him, which that's a fun time to get.
He looks so annoyed, and then the guy that was in the porta potty finally comes out, and he does like a double take at Dale Jr. standing there waiting on him to come out, which was funny too.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep. And then before we go to commercial, Dale explains the hat dance, which we all know that's Victory Lane. You got to take 400 pictures with different sponsors' hats on, and the funny part of this segment was seeing Dale Jarrett being yelled at by all these photographers to do different poses, like drink the Coke now, like that was great. I really like that. Last commercial break, or no, I guess there's 4 commercial breaks here. So there's an ad for something called the Fast and Famous special, which is like an IndyCar MTV special. And they did something called the MTV 500, and we're going to do a bunch of driven promotions. So I got to find that. We'll have to, if I can find that, we'll have to watch it at some point, because I don't remember that at all.
No, me either.
And the other good ad from this break, there's something called the Co-Pilot speakerphone piece for your car, which more or less this is like a Bluetooth from 20 years ago, where it's like
FM transmitter, I would assume.
Yeah,
right?
it's an FM transmitter for your phone, and you hook up this little microphone to your phone, and it transmits to the radio. So a very early Bluetooth type device. So I got a kick out of that, just seeing some super old tech like that.
As a guy who has to use an FM transmitter in his Jeep, this hit really close to home. I can assure you the audio quality was not as good as they were advertising.
Oh, yeah, not a chance. The next segment here is where they start to talk about the wrecks. There's a girl, one of the fans that they talked to earlier in the show. She's talking about how she hates it when fans cheer for the wrecks. She doesn't like the violent aspect of it. And then there's some fat fuck behind her saying that that's what they get paid for. So fuck that guy. They are actually at the fall New Hampshire race in 2000, so this will be the second reality show that we've watched for this show that I've been at the race. I was at this race. I don't remember these cameras or anything. I didn't see any of them. I mean, I wouldn't have probably known anyways, but I was definitely at this race they were at. Dale talks about how earlier in the year, Kenny Irwin and Adam Petty had died at New Hampshire. He gets into talking about the weekend schedule and setting up the car and all that. They show him in practice where he actually himself got a stuck throttle and the first thing he did getting out of the car was go to talk to his dad, who his dad told him to stay out of the car until they fix that. Dale Jr. at this point says if there's ever a problem, the first person he goes to is his dad, which is, obviously a little sad knowing what we know is about to come.
Yeah.
From this race, he was running in the top 10 that day, but he ended up getting in a wreck with Jerry Nadeau and took himself out. But his dad's there to pat him on the back after a bad day. And then they show a clip of Dale Sr. coptering out of the track, which I guess that's another thing I didn't know. I didn't know Dale actually flew helicopters, so that was interesting to see. The last commercial break, really not anything too interesting. Probably the most annoying ad was one from musicchoice.com featuring David Gray. I fucking hate David Gray. He's awful. So finishing up the episode, now they're at Rockingham, and Junior is talking about his dad's guidance and...
Oh, did we lose him?
Another classic Meet Me at Applebees.
He quit to go put in his David Gray CD?
Yeah. He's got to send an apology email to the fan club. It's like, look, I had to do it. They can't know. It's Brian's dirty little secret is that he's the biggest David Gray fan out there. I really, I love that A1. Remember that A1 ad? We kind of skipped over that.
Oh, yeah.
Classic
that
ad.
was a good one.
The three old guys who don't know anything about this world other than steak.
They just live in a steakhouse.
Yeah, which sounds pretty
Do
good.
their little crossword puzzle.
To be honest with you. And another note I had about Loudon is it's just amazing to me that how little that place has changed.
Yeah.
I know most racetracks are kind of the same, but Loudon looks just about the same. I think they'd gotten rid of the infield lake and all that at this point. But yeah, New Hampshire looks just like it did, or it looks just like it did in the video now. It's crazy.
Yeah. So where was I? What was the last thing I said?
We're just now starting with Rockingham. So just
okay. So yeah, I must have my internet's been all bad tonight.
Yeah,
so
you went to listen to
David Gray. Yeah.
Yeah, I could promise you I was not doing that.
Sucking up all the bandwidth.
So we're at Rockingham, and he's talking about his dad's guidance, and sometimes he doesn't necessarily take his dad's guidance. And then Junior talks about run-ins with different drivers, and they show a clip of Junior gotten spun out by Kurt Busch in the race, and then they show him taking his car to the garage where he runs into a trash can. And then once they get the car fixed, because this was still the era where you could do that, he goes out on the track and immediately just runs up Kurt's ass for about 30 laps until NASCAR tells him to stop, and then Dale pretends he can't hear the radio, which I love that.
That was great. My favorite from that was right before the race. Dale Sr. is talking to Junior, and he's like, I've got 2 words for you, tire management. And Dale Jr. goes, I got 2 words, cold beer. So it's a nice little father-son moment.
After getting told to knock it off, the race ends, and Kurt was on camera for a minute, and they both seemed to take it in stride. Dale himself was like, yeah, he got the message, and now we're good. So didn't really hold anything against, shit happens on the track. And then the show pretty much ends with Dale Jr. saying, anytime I can see my dad on the track, I try to help him if I can. And they talk about the Talladega win, where Junior was part of that as far as helping push his dad to the front. And then it ends with the sad news that was Senior's last win, and he passed away in February, and that's how the episode ends. So obviously ends on a sad note, but...
Cutting some onions there at the end.
Yeah.
And that's when America died in general. So
pretty much
has not been as good since.
Nope. 2001 was a rough year for America.
David Gray aside.
That was the last great album that we got.
Okay. Let's not go that far.
Well, Chocolate Starfish came out in 99 or 2000, right? So that was... new metal had just about wrapped up at that point.
Don't play him now. Jesus Christ. We're going to get fucking fined.
No,
or something.
we're good.
We get kicked off iTunes.
I gotta say the
Applebee's
drumming
$2.
on that record is pretty excellent.
Yeah,
So,
well, you can keep that opinion yourself, pal. I don't know anything about that.
yeah. Well, it sounds like you might. So
Speaking of drummers, I'll say this now. Rob, Primus is having
for a
open
drummer.
auditions. Please submit your resume just to see what happens.
I
Just
can't
to
play
see what
that
happens
shit.
for me.
I'm not nearly good enough to be in Primus.
Brian.
Regardless, I just want to see the rejection letter. Just for me, you should do it.
What if I got it and then I can't be on the show anymore?
No, that'd be amazing. Then I could just go on tour with you all the time. That'd be perfect.
Oh God.
I'm not as big a Primus fan as Brian is, but that would be pretty cool. Those songs are really fun. So
No one is.
Yeah.
no one
Yes,
is.
I would absolutely love that. Fuck this show. I'm going on tour with Rob for the next 10
With
years.
Primus.
Yes, forget about it. So yeah, I love this, and it sounds like
Yeah.
y'all did too. So
Yeah.
what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
this is a really raw look at the entire picture of NASCAR in that era, and I really liked it a lot. Again, you're not going to see a perspective like this, especially from a major media company, or really any media company anymore, especially with the access they had here. I really enjoyed the shit out of this.
Yeah, this
really
is
did.
better than Netflix. I thought it was very
Absolutely.
well done. And as a huge Dale Jr. fan, there were so many like little Dale Jr. interview clips that I had never seen before, and like moments between him and his dad during those final months that they had together. So
Yeah. Yeah, very good find. I
Good
would
job,
hope.
Brian.
I would hope that someday something like this could make it to air again. But I
Well,
don't
it wouldn't
know.
be on MTV because they don't do any
No,
cool
they
shit
don't.
They
like
don't even
this
show
anymore.
music anymore.
Jersey
So,
Shore.
yeah. Get Pauly D out there. Fuck it.
Well,
what did you have for us next?
yeah. So I got a couple good ones for you the last few weeks. So this week, changing it up a little bit. So I actually ran across this video during the week, and I watched it, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And there's a handful of different talking points that we could talk about throughout watching this. But the first one, I got 3 videos, and one, this is the long one. The other 2 are one. They're even totaling up. It's about 25 minutes total. So. It's not very long. This one's the 20-minute one. This one is called The Weird History of the Rick Ware Brothers. Like I
I've
said,
seen
I
this on
watched all this.
YouTube. Yeah.
And what's that?
I've seen this on YouTube.
Oh, you have?
I have not watched it, but I've seen the thumbnail.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say it was only just posted 10 days ago, so it's still pretty new. But yeah, I watched this, and yeah, there's a bunch of stuff to talk about in this. So that's the
pretty
first
weird?
one. What's that?
Was it weird?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's weird. It's just, I mean, the Ware brothers themselves, the whole situation is weird, and the kid doing the video is there's some
He's the weird part.
there's some parasocial stuff going on that I want to talk about. So we'll
Very cool.
we'll put that in there. But the other 2 videos, so the episode next week will be coming out right before Thanksgiving, so I decided to see what if any Thanksgiving videos I could find. So I got 2, and they're both very short, and I got to look up and see what the exact names are here. Hold on one second, because I already put them on the playlist. So the first one is this one is just bizarre, and you'll hate it, but I had to put it on there. It just says Kyle and Samantha Bush celebrate Thanksgiving, and I'll say that this
You're right.
is
I'm gonna hate this. Yeah.
I'll say that this is just some weird AI cobbled together thing, and
What?
that's why I'm putting it on here. It's only 2 minutes. It's not very long,
Jesus.
but it's just bizarre. So I had to throw that on there. And then this last one.
Learn this week that Kyle Busch thinks that Thanksgiving is November 25th every year. So God bless him.
That's fine. It's close enough, it's always like the last week of Thanksgiving. Whatever.
It's the last
It's
Thursday,
fine.
but it's not. Go ahead.
Anyway,
Yeah.
there were
Christmas
a lot
is
of,
December 25th. Just so.
yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's where the confusion is stemming
Yeah.
from.
It's not the brightest.
There were a lot of videos of just like NASCAR drivers talking about their favorite Thanksgiving foods, and I could have put one of those, but they're kind of boring. So what I did put in, and it's only 3 minutes, but let's just say it's reminiscent of a couple other videos we watched this year. And all I'm going to say is it's titled NASCAR Parody Dale's Thanksgiving. So it's only got 91 views, and it was posted 5 years ago, so you know it's a good one.
Wow. Perfect.
Those are our 3 videos of the week, and I'm very excited to hear what you guys think of those. So that'll be next week.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'll say that.
I know you won't.
Hopefully the Primus gig will come through before this next episode, and I don't have to watch these, but...
Well, yeah, there's no racing to talk about next week. I think there's an F1. Is there? Yeah, there's F1 this weekend in Vegas.
Yeah, and of course
Vegas
the South Carolina
1
400. Yeah, exactly. I'm not staying up for that.
Yeah, the Flow Racing, the Florence race. I was debating going, but I'm not. I just don't feel like spending the money, and traveled a bunch this year, and I got a few more trips coming up, so I don't really feel like flying down there for the weekend.
Gotta save up for the Chili Bowl there, Bob.
That too. So yeah, there's some little bit of racing, but there's also the awards banquets, which we talked about last year, so I'm sure we'll talk about them again next week. But yeah, that's pretty much it, man. It's less and less. So we are in the off season now. So with that, as always, you can follow us on Instagram at meetmeatapplebees and on Twitter at meetmeatapplebees. I've yet to make a Blue Sky account. I probably will at some point, but I have yet to do that because it seems like all the good people are going over there. So that'll happen one of these days. As always, you can follow me on Speedway Screens on all the things, and the shop is... Fuck off, Rob. I'm throwing my plug. Jesus Christ.
What are you talking about?
SpeedwayTSJ.etsy.com is the shop. Do not put David Gray in as a promo code because that'll charge you 20% extra. MMA Applebee's is 15% off.
Nice.
True love.
I'm over here trying to Google this fucking video, and I am already annoyed at the thumbnail.
Which one?
The NASCAR parody Thanksgiving.
Holy shit.
It's only 3 minutes. This one
says 15 minutes, so I hope
No.
I'm looking at the wrong one.
Just look at the playlist. It's already on the playlist. I would not make you sit through a 15-minute video of this.
I appreciate that.
Well,
yeah.
I don't have any plugs. Go, Rob.
Well, Rob, until you're in Primus, what are your other plugs?
Rob Motes _ unofficial. It'll be official after I join Primus. My band's called These Wild Plains. I want to give a quick shout out to Charlie Marie, my other boss. We just recorded her new record this weekend up in Salem, and my God, you guys are in for a treat whenever this thing comes out. We got some cool tour plans coming up next year. I can't talk about them just yet. Got to wait for them to be fully confirmed. But yeah, you're going to see us all over the globe next year, and I'm very excited about that. But yeah, Chuck is awesome. And if you ever have a chance to come see us play, come out and have a beer with me. There's going to be plenty of that next year. And like I said, this record's going to be awesome. Did have a chance to sit down with the boys and watch a little bit of the Sonoya race this weekend. Again, they don't know dirt late models from a hole in their ass or whatever, or salt up their ass, whatever the fuck. You know? But they were excited to watch some racing after we wrapped up the session, and I love those guys very much, and Charlie as well. So yeah, got some cool stuff coming up, and I'm still honestly kind of buzzing from hanging out with everybody in Charlotte a couple weeks ago. That was so killer,
same.
And what a great way to close out the year. I think we got a couple more episodes left in us here. We might do some snowball derby stuff. We are going to take a little break like we usually do coming up here, but we got a few more episodes left this year before we shut it down for the winter and go to the Chili Bowl and do all that stuff, which, by the way, I'm definitely going to be there. So if you got Chili Bowl plans in the works, you can count on finding me stumbling around by the old Moonshine Bar back by the big garage door in the garage area. So, yeah, make your plans, folks. It's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, cool. Well, it looks like the check. What?
Fucking thumbnail for the Cookie Weird video.
Yeah, isn't that gross?
Disgusting.
Actually, real quick before we shut this thing down, let me see if the Chili Bowl shit has been announced here. We can go through the entries, but yeah, I should have done this about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it next week. Who gives a shit?
Yep. Well, the check is here, so thank you once again for joining us at Applebee's, and we'll talk to y'all next week.